Welcome to the Scandinavian Mind podcast, our weekly show about how technology is changing the creative industries. Today on the program, how to launch a Nordic beauty brand internationally. We are joined by Ola Gejde, founder of the Stockholm-based consultancy Daimon Retail. Ola is a good friend and an expert in the beauty field, and we will talk to him about the state of Nordic beauty from a business perspective, lessons learned from launching Nordic beauty brands internationally, and why beauty is becoming more of an identifier for consumers. My name is Konrad, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind, and I'm joined with my dear colleague and our resident beauty expert, Johan Magnusson. How are you, Johan?
Yeah, I'm very good. How are you?
Excited to be here in the podcast studio where we'll soon invite Ola into the conversation. It's not often that we do pod studio conversations here at the Helio co-working space. Happy to be here. And Johan, of course, we are now celebrating 3 months of Beauty Innovation Insights newsletters. So I thought we'd just start off by talking a little bit about you sharing what's it been like doing this newsletter during summer.
A lot of work and a new kind of work because you constantly are looking for insights. It's not about following product launches or just speak to brands in a regular way, but try to find the right executives that may share the right insights. So it's been challenging but also very rewarding, and as mentioned in previous episodes, I've learned a lot, and I hope that the readers have as well.
Well, judging from the reactions, they certainly have. And, one of the reasons we wanted to do this is that we just realized we had all this information and had all these insights kind of at our disposal. And we needed to find a format to package it and share it to the audience, which is largely made up of people within these industries that we cover. So in this case, the beauty industry. Can you talk about any of the stories that you've found enlightening for you that has been a different type of reporting for you?
Oh, there's been quite many, but it's so good when you meet the right people. They're very generous with their insights. For instance, Filip Sedic, founder of Foreo, the Swedish founded beauty tech pioneer, now celebrating their first decade. They hosted a huge event in Stockholm the other week, and I got the chance to we spoke for like almost an hour. And he was so generous and very open-minded, and also a bit controversial in terms of how to resonate with the rest of the industry, because they're so big; they have nothing to lose. He can be he can speak out freely, and they have come such a long way. So he was so full of confidence, and it was a conversation I will remember for quite long.
Good stuff. We also launched the beauty innovation concept at SIF. We've done two sessions now, one early in the year when we hadn't yet launched the newsletter. What was the vibe down in Copenhagen, and how do people receive our concept there?
That's so good, because then we got to meet the target group, so to say, because of course the people there at the booth, at the trade fair stands, they of course work at the brands, so they're the industry representatives, and it's quite clear that it's also so much of a white space, like we're filling a gap in the market, so to say, because we've seen, of course, beauty industry newsletters or media outlets from like the US or the UK, and we do have some in the Nordics, but they're in their local language, while we of course cover it in English so we can reach an international audience. So it's clear that it's something that's been missing for a specific group, like beauty industry insiders or those interested in the industry. But the response from the target group was super, super positive.
Wonderful. So just a note to say before we get into our interview with Ola that Beauty Innovation is now moving from its early access free edition that's been running throughout summer into the paid version. So this is a paid newsletter. We do need support from the industry to produce our content. So starting from this week, you will need to sign up for our paid version of the newsletter, and there's an early access offer at 20% off if you sign up now for the full first year. There's also a larger group discount if you want several subscriptions for your company. All right. We're soon going to invite Ola into the conversation. Johan, maybe you can just introduce Ola a little bit before we get him into the conversation. Who is Ola Gejde?
Such a nice guy. We've known each other for a few years now. We see each other every second, every third month. We have a beer. We just speak freely about this and that from the industry, and focusing on beauty, and also very experienced, of course, from various parts of the industry. Now also an entrepreneur running his own beauty and personal care brand. So it's always nice to speak to smart people in a casual setting.
Wonderful. So let's invite Ola Gejde after the break. All right, we're sitting here now with Ola Gejde, founder of Daimon Retail. Welcome, Ola.
Thank you so much, Konrad.
It's been a long time coming. We've talked about having you on the pod for a lot of for many. I don't know. Is it even years?
Yes, it is even years.
Yeah.
So even though I think you have your office 300 meters from ours and we see each other all the time, but we thought since we're moving into a new season with beauty innovation, we wanted a real expert on the podcast. So maybe start off by introducing yourself and what you do with Daimon Retail.
Yeah, so Daimon Retail was founded in 2010. So it's 13 years plus, actually, together with my two colleagues, Linda Bradley and Camilla Strange. And from the beginning, we have been a very niche consultancy focusing on both strategy, but also very operative on the, I would say, the sales field, helping brands to get started, not just making PowerPoints. And we've been focusing on a few industries, and I would say the common factor is lifestyle brands with a clear, true, good story. And that is seen within beauty as well as in fashion and interior design. So those are the three segments that we work in. And we have worked with a lot of beauty brands. I was early on with La Bruket, for example, and follow them on, I don't know how many markets, but a lot. So it's been a lot of Swedish brands, but we also have an office in Berlin where we have approached and worked with some European brands as well. A nice brand in Holland called Marie Stella Maris, which is a brand I really like as well. So it's been a number of years, and 2 years ago we also decided to do it ourselves, because being a consultant for many years, you get some eagerness to try your skills and do something yourself. And then we started a care and cleaning brand and personal care brand called Active Caring, which is a brand that going to help you to take care of your objects instead of your skin, but in the same way, so you can make it last. So it's an interesting journey, and I understand the struggle from many brands starting from scratch. So a lot of learnings.
There's tons of follow-ups, and we want to get into the experience of launching your own brand and taking some of your clients out internationally. But talk to me a little bit about why you have this sort of interesting approach, because as you mentioned, you're not just a consultancy in that you're just giving advice or sitting in a conference room. You're actually working very hands-on with your clients. How did that come about? And talk a little bit more about how that process works.
I think I've been a consultant for other consultancies before, and I always had the feeling that when you get a nice fancy report with good advice, it's often say, okay, how do I do it? And it's more about the doing than the ideas today, because there's so many ideas, and taking the ideas to action, I think that's where a lot of people need help. And also, I think the whole retail industry is not so consultant oriented. They're much more sales oriented and result oriented. So I think that urges us also to become more operative, and giving advice is good, but also how can we transfer that advice to sales? So that's what we've been focusing on, and trying to help brands in the first step to get into a new market, take the first baby steps, but also maybe to find the first partner and get them going, like a team. So in many brands, we've been part of the team as a team member instead of just a consultant in a suit.
So we're talking about actually traveling to these new markets, establishing contacts, visiting trade shows, visiting new, I guess, in retail locations, all that sort of, hands-on, on-the-ground stuff.
Absolutely. Even finding stores. So it's been on a detail level. Absolutely.
Wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about specifically beauty, because that's why we kind of wanted to invite you. And I'm going to invite you, Johan. I know you have tons of questions. Starting off, what's been your general view of the beauty industry throughout all these years? I mean, you've now worked intricately with brands. You now gone into starting your own one. Are there some general trends you see of how the industry has changed and the attitude towards brands have changed?
I think Scandinavian beauty, or S beauty, or N beauty, or what we should call it, is becoming something on the map. Actually, it's still, I would say, early stage. I mean, if you look at the brands we have in Sweden, not many of them are big brands, but they're big in their phase, meaning that they've done a good first steps to take it to the next volume step. But I think in general, Sweden has, from a perspective outside Sweden, we have clean air, we have clean water, and that's also something which has been transferred into the beauty industry of Sweden. So I think we have a high trustworthiness in creating natural, clean products. And I also think we have a different touch of it because we come more from a design perspective than we come from a true ingredient perspective from the beginning. We're simple. We have simple routines. With packaged with nice design, and we try to, I think we created true stories, which are, take La Buket for an example, which comes from Varberg with all the spa culture. I mean, it's something which is tellable in so many lines. It's a story which is not made by an advertising agency. And I think that's the context of Swedish beauty. We're not complex like you take K-beauty with 10-step process. It's a simple process. And it's clean. And I think also maybe on the contrary, we're not perceived as very technical. There are brands like Verso, for example, who is a technical brand. But in general, we're not really that tech oriented as maybe American brands are. So, but it's a good foundation, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see what are the next steps, because not many of them are big today, except for Byredo, of course, and who's next in line. Again, I think it would be interesting to see, but they're on the map in many countries. It's not just that they've gone from Sweden to Germany, they've spread out to all the major cities and really made a name for it. And
And we also tend to forget, because we live here. It's so easy accessible for us. You go to your country house every weekend in the summer, Konrad. The closeness to nature is a cliche, but it's also quite exotic for non-Scandinavians. So this lifestyle can also be transferred into ad campaigns or lifestyle campaigns, but also like beauty routines, like the simpleness, so to say. And where nature, of course, there's a huge growth for natural beauty. And that resonates quite well with the local market and the local beauty brands.
I fully agree. And I also think that Sweden has always been an exporting country, cannot call it company, but we are good at creating niches, because that's what you need to do in order to succeed internationally. So, I mean, take a small brand like Gun Anna, who's making SPF products. It's perfect. It's a niche which is so touchable, and the need for the consumer can really translate it to something that I want myself. And it's easy to talk about it. Instead of being this broad brand who has everything, it's not going to succeed. So I think we've been good at creating these small stories and small niches in Sweden which is translatable in any language around the world.
And the keys to success for many brands in the startup phase, so to say, is of course to begin with your local market. And then of course it's quite an advantage that the Nordic population in general is quite now well known for being so curious and open to try new things, and not afraid of failing or choosing the wrong product. So even though we have this huge competition, we constantly see a development with new brands emerging. You mentioned Gunana, which is a great example. But also it's so easy to just set up your own web shop, and we're so digital first. So we're so open to we're constantly with our cell phones, of course, and that's not unique for this region, but we're so far ahead when it comes to online shopping, modern retail, consumer behavior and such. So it's a great there are great conditions for beauty brands to not only start but also to grow, and then go to SIF in Copenhagen or expand to other markets in other ways, or through you guys.
So you mentioned some of the sort of the positives of being a Nordic or Swedish brand. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the hurdles? You mentioned we're not perceived as highly high tech, which is kind of surprises me in a way. But what other challenges are you facing as a kind of smaller, medium-sized brand going out there?
I would say the industry is changing because of the economic climate a lot, and the easiness to establish a new beauty brand. I mean, 10 years ago, it was hard to establish a new brand. But today, I mean, to be honest, anyone can start a new brand if you have the idea of your story and your type of target group, etc. So,
meaning it's easy to find packaging, someone to do a white label product for you, etc.
Extremely easy, I would say. And there are many production units in Sweden and in Europe who will be happy to make your recipe as long as you have a good story. So the amount of new brands is a difficult part, and also the risk taking in the industry, because the stores are not doing very well, so they're not taking any risk anymore, which means the next person in line, which is the distributor or agent, is not taking any risk. So all the risk ends up on the brand. And many brands, they're not starting with millions in their pocket. They start with enthusiasm. What did you say before? LFG. Saying, let's go. But they don't have the resources. And in the past, they've been relying a lot on the distributors, because the distributors, they bought maybe 3 months of stock. And that could finance the next round of production and ease the cash flow. But now the distributors, they buy almost what they sell. So they buy like a store.
Right.
So that makes it really hard to make it. And if you don't have the investment then, or back again to the margins you have, it's difficult. I think that's what a lot of people are struggling with. And it takes so long time to establish a brand. It's not done in a sec. So persistency and then being able to finance that situation, I think it's been pushed back to the brand, not more than in like 10 years ago.
Still, you were so keen to start your own venture.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've seen all those challenges firsthand, and still.
I want to hold off on that for a while, because we're going to get into the experience of launching your own brand. But going out, past the Nordic borders, and you mentioned this resonates all over the world. But what are some of the most important markets? Where would you start if you were a smaller band to launch internationally?
As Johan said before, I would start in Sweden, of course, and make it really good in Sweden to prove the brand. Maybe not necessarily be a big brand in Sweden, but prove that you have your target group, you know your customer, you have your story, which is tellable, as I said before, in multiple lines. So, like, take the old whisper story, where you ask 10 people to say the same thing. It should end up at the 10th person at exactly the same story. Right. So, because if something's a little bit grayish on the color scale in Sweden, it will become pitch black internationally. Because then you will meet so many other brands which already have their community target group. They're already selling. They're already in with all the retailers. So I think sharpen the knife or sharpen the saw before you go abroad. And basic things like story, presentations, pictures, content, videos in a professional way given to the next party in line instead of them asking for it. Simple things, but so important to have. And I think the other thing which is important is, again, back to the margins. I think the margin question is essential question for being able to succeed internationally. Because if the store wants 50% margin, the distributor wants 50% margin, and you want 50% margin, just do the math.
You're gonna have to 400% to start with to have
So
a business.
it's like, because when you start a brand in Sweden, you think, oh, I'm going to sell to Kicks or Nitty Gritty or Åhléns or NK, and you forget that internationally you will have to fill in one more person in the line, or maybe two. And even if you are a DTC brand selling direct to consumer, it's going to cost a lot of money to buy that first customer. And if that first customer don't buy again, you have to buy a new customer. So Mark Zuckerberg it will cost you 50, 60 euros to buy one customer. If your product costs 30 euros, again, do the math. You will need a margin. And many people or many brands, they forget about the margin in the beginning. So I always ask, one of the first questions I ask, what's your cost of goods sold compared to your retail price? Easy question, but...
So get your math straight. I also thought it was interesting that you highlighted the content and the storytelling, and I just want to touch on that a little bit, because I'm sure it's not enough to just say that you're from the Nordics.
No.
Or like we have the amazing values of Scandinavia, so forth. What is that kind of X factor do you need? What specific heritage or storyline, or from the founder, or from the place your origin? Like, how do you recommend brand to find that story, or is there a particular type of ingredient that kind of resonates internationally?
You mean ingredient, or?
No, I mean in the actual story. Like,
no, I it's hard to say, I would say, but it needs to be compelling to what we discussed earlier about touching on people's personality. How can you, we discussed like the fashion industry, who's always been good at attracting people through how they look, and I express myself through my clothes. And how can I do that with beauty products today? It's the same thing today. Your bathroom locker is your wardrobe today. And how can you create that type of community where people want to belong to that, rather than just being a skincare product who solves my skin to be nourished and smooth? So how do you create those stories? And how do you create that trustworthiness that I want to belong to your brand? Because essentially that's what that they have to aim for in the future. How do I belong to a brand? What are the sort of emotions which creates that I want to buy your product or want to be part of your group? So, but again, advertising stories is hard to be trustworthy. So it's better that there is something which someone experienced from the beginning, or touched upon, which you can relate to as a consumer. But you were the storyteller.
But super fascinating, and the what you said, the bathroom cabinet becomes the new wardrobe. Johan, do you want to follow up? Do you see that as well, or do you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard it from more and more now from industry representatives, how to express yourself through, and it also comes down to what you buy in the grocery store, not only your wardrobe but also your like general consumption, how you travel. It's about being conscious, and also, speaking of storytelling, to be able to tell your friends the conscious choices that you've made. And that also is, of course, what you put on your skin.
Yeah. And I think, the fashion industry has always been good at this, and I also then see in the future that we will see new players. As back to, again, how hard is it to create a new beauty brand?
Right.
Easy. So why not Acne doing a beauty line? They have a very clear community of people who express themselves with their clothes, and they would love to have their skincare as well. So, and it's not hard for them to do it.
Yeah.
And you already see it. I mean, take an interior brand like Frama, furniture brand.
Right.
They've created body lotion, hand cream, and soap. Where's this trustworthiness in a furniture brand creating a body care? But they do it. And they really created a brand which people want to buy their soap and their hand cream. And the price of it is like 50 euros. So that's what I mean by new players coming in from the side who are not necessarily the man or woman who had problems with their skin in the beginning due to allergies. And now I created a new skincare which will reduce my rashes, or my child who is allergic to perfumes or whatever. Those were the stories from the past. But now it's the brands again who are... I like Frama. I think they like nice furniture. I like their soap because it's a design product.
Yeah, well, I also thought the furniture brands had kind of carte blanche in doing home accessories and other products, because compared to the cost of a sofa, 50 euros for a soap or something is nothing. So I just throw that in there.
Yeah.
But I think I think the consequence of what you're saying right now is that, because since beauty, it's not something that you immediately see. I mean, an acne sweatshirt with a cool print, you can see it's an acne sweatshirt. But whereas your kind of moisturizer or even your makeup, you don't see the brand on you. So the story you tell to your friends about that product becomes such a huge part of the brand experience then. So it kind of underscores why that story has to be solid in a way.
But you see, when I come to visit you next time in your archipelago house, I'm sure you have some branded skincare products in your bathroom cabinet.
Absolutely.
And I will judge you and determine your personality after it.
Which is a good way of transitioning into active caring. I'm now holding one of your products in my hand because you are actually one of the suppliers to Helio, where we're sitting right now. So let's get into the experience of launching your own brand. I remember you came to us with a product presentation. And I thought it was fascinating because you had this unique kind of take on it, because it was both you did skincare stuff, hand creams, but you also did this kind of home care lines. There was like, I don't know, was it creams for your marble or stuff like that. But talk about the origins of doing this.
The origins is that there's in my belief at least, there's a huge mind-changing shift in the industry, or in people's mind, that mass consumption has hopefully reached its peak. And that means that we're more conscious of what we buy. In skincare, in fashion, in furniture, etc. We buy quality more, at least in the urban areas. And I think then there's also a discussion about, okay, even if I buy quality stuff, I need to take care of it. And how can we make people take care of something which people normally think is really boring? Because who wants to clean and care for something? Maybe there's been a lot of men, at least, taking care of their shoes for ages. Men love their shoes. They've been polishing them for ages. But
less and less so, it feels like.
Yeah, because now we all have sneakers. So not you. No, but I think there's how can you help people to find joy in taking care of what you have? That's the foundation of active caring. And also maybe doing some flirting with the skincare industry, where you really take a lot of time to take care of your skin, man and woman today. But how, if we can transfer that to take care of your stuff, your objects and your interiors, even if it's your marble bench or your wooden table, if I take care of this, it will last forever, and you also find joy in it. I feel so good after oiling my Grythyttan furniture. I really do. And I want to express that, and I want to get more people to find joy in that. So that's the foundation of active caring. So true, we have a lot of products for routines, skincare routines, for taking care of your marble, your silver, your wood, your leather bag, which is now a Hermes bag or a Gucci bag. How do you take care of that so it lasts forever? But we've combined that with lifestyle products such as soap and hand cream and ordinary home care products and personal care products. So that's where we are. And it's been really hard, to be honest, to create your own brand, because I've been helping so many brands. But whenever a brand has come to me, everything is done. Maybe I've complained about their presentation and their content material and a little bit tweaking the story, but all the hard work from creating the recipe to the bottles to the regulations to everything which is building up to where Daimon normally has been excellent in taking it to the next step. I know it's a long, tough journey, but fun.
And ongoing, but yeah, you're growing, and yeah, the visibility is bigger and bigger, and
No, it's starting now.
slowly but steadily.
Slowly
Yeah.
but steady. But we're doing the Daimon process, so we're doing it internationally from day one. So it's now in several markets around the world in the early phase. But we're trying to do it by what we taught other companies.
But this also means that you're moving. I mean, it's not. We've talked a lot about beauty in this episode, but you're not maybe targeting beauty retailers in the same. It's more like furniture retailers, or how do you see where does the product land, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. The furniture companies, the like Asplunds here in Stockholm, or whatever prominent furniture store, or also the vintage stores like Auktionsverket or Bukowski's, who really sell vintage furniture with a price which can increase over time if you take care of it. So they're very eager to say that, I mean, buy this care kit and maybe you get €1,000 more next time you sell it, or you can give it to your grandchild and they will still be in good shape. That's the emotion I want to create. But it's still still the same process to launch the brand, and I think there's no difference between skincare and what I'm doing here. It's the same process, but the channels may be different. But the beauty stores today, they diverse much more than they used to be in the past. So a lot of nice, I mean, Johan and I, we talked about Oh My Cream in France, which is a nice chain of organic beauty. I mean, they're introducing much more wellness assortment. And you see that in many stores, that cleaning and care brands are coming into these ones. Even at Nose Beauty or Nose store in Paris, which is a perfume store, they have cleaning products. And why do they get in there? Because they have emotions like scents. So traditional cleaning and care brands has been Ajax or whatever, horrible. But now you've added the scent element. So you create emotions just like you do with perfume. So I think in the future, a lot of beauty stores will cover the whole element of even some nutrition and food, wellness, cleaning, and perfume and beauty. So it's not these verticals as before. And you cater for the whole process, and hopefully in a natural way as well. So.
Is this also a function of these brands wanting new places to sell their products in a way? Like if you're a scent brand, you want to get into a furniture store, or if you're a fashion brand, you maybe also want to get into some kind of homeware and so to speak. We see the kind of crossovers happening all over the place. And you see this growing?
Yeah, and it's actually a lot have started in Sweden, actually. Sweden has always been very good at creating lifestyle concepts. I mean, if you take the map of Europe going down in Italy, you still have a lot of verticals. You have your butcher, you have your men's store, you have your women's clothing, etc. But in Sweden, it's all merged now, and we're creating lifestyle experiences, and it's spreading. But I would say we are in the forefront of that. I would say. And of course in the major cities you see it, but in Sweden you have it all over. You're selling all towards a target group where it's cleaning, or if it's fashion, or if it's wellness products or whatever, it's all in the same place.
So it's more about knowing your audience and servicing them with whatever new product they might be interested in.
Yeah. But again, if you look at, I mean, one of the advice I give to premium brands, if you want to launch internationally, is like start yourself, start in the cities instead of doing a country, and start with the brand building stores, which are maybe 5 or 6 in each city. And it's really hard to get into them, but once you get into 2 or 3, the door is open, because they all look at each other. If you go to Voo store in Berlin or Good Hood store in London, you will see that they have the same brands. Right. And they think they're unique, but it's the same brands all over in these stores. And that's something which is good or bad, but they are a good window to start with. And there.
Yeah, and when they're launching new brands or introducing or reintroducing like old heritage brands, you know that in 1 year or 1.5 years, you'll see it in the leading stores in Scandinavia.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the time frame, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say a brand store like Nitty Gritty in Stockholm is really onto it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're part of the gang
Sure.
of these 5-6 stores in each city around the world.
Mm.
So, but it's a long way to get in there. But once you're through the door, that also opens up to you being approached by other stores, but also distributors and agents. So it's a good way to do a effective and economic brand journey.
And that's also like, because when stores are closing in like mid-sized cities, of course the people living there, they won't stop consuming. They won't transfer into like online stores just because one retailer has closed, which means that of course the rest of the retailers will probably improve. And that's like a development that we'll see in more sectors, I think. I'm not saying that like, I'm not sure that we'll see like the death of retail. We'll see the transformation of retail, right?
Fully agree. I say that even more now, the omni-channel approach is extremely important, because 10 years ago, maybe people came to us, or maybe 5 years ago, saying that we only want to do direct to consumer.
Right.
But now it's back to a mix of it. So it's important to have those brand building stores, but also the global e-commerce players like Net-a-Porter, Mr. Porter, My Teresa, Louis van der Roma. Those ones are really good spreaders of your brand once getting in there, but also your own site. But it's so expensive to drive that channel, so you need your branding. And unless, again, if you have a big investment, of course you can do everything by yourself, but not many of these brands we're talking about have that. They're small.
And you talk a lot about brand building now in connection to retail, but when you work with brands and they expand, do they do that to like grow as a brand, like in terms of sales and sell more, or is it mainly brand building now when going into, say, the leading store in the UK or Spain? Because that's, after all, it's like 1 or 2 retailers, so the profit is limited, of course.
I don't think you see so much sales in these doors. You don't. So it's a brand, it's a marketing phase, I would say. It's a validation. It's a validation phase. And once you're validated, the next step is going down. I always try to draw a pyramid where the top is top stores and very little volume. And how do you move down to the next phase without destroying the brand? But in most cases, I would say Swedish brands uses partners to do it. They're not selling themselves in the next phase. Right. They're using distributors and agents, especially in Asia, for example. And very early on in the Asian market, for example, you will need to be more visible, not just a few bottles on a shelf. You will eventually need your own store, your store concept, because otherwise you're not a brand. And the help of a distributor making that happen, they can finance that. So it's doable for a small brand, but the size of La Bruket, I mean, look at what they're doing in Korea now. They're smashing it because they have a visibility which is really nice. And I think that's much faster in Asia than it is in Europe. In Europe, we still have a lot of wholesale, and we have e-com, of course. In the US, Amazon is extremely important. More than 50% of the sales of beauty products is through Amazon today.
Wow.
So, and we haven't even heard of Amazon in Sweden, or at least it's nothing that we will go into. No. Maybe buying tape. But
so when will we see the active caring flagship store?
Yeah, I think soon. I think my dream is to have a care bar in Stockholm, where you can come in with your nice bag or your shoes or your side table, and we'll take care of it and make it beautiful again. That's my dream of it. And maybe in a few years, but definitely we need a care bar concept here and in other parts of the world as well.
And you, if any, know where to put it, because you know all the retailers here.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I can sense you have some plan there that you're not revealing. We need to wrap this up, but is there any parting comment regards to where the industry is going? If you look in the crystal ball, the next kind of 5 years, what are the things brand need to look out for or invest in or double down on?
Create that community and really do content. Get help by Scandinavian Mind to create the content of really defining your target group and making that people think that's my personality. How do we get to that? And keep on researching about new ingredients, but ingredients are trends. I mean, we've seen anti-pollution, we've seen CBD, we see SPF, and they all come and go, but brand building, I would say, key.
Ola Gejde is the co-founder of Daimon Retail and the home care brand Act of Caring. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Scandinavian Mind podcast, the special edition about beauty innovation with Ola Gejde and my colleague Johan Magnusson. Don't forget to sign up to our Beauty Innovation Insights newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/beauty innovation, and of course our regular newsletter with news from the fashion, beauty, design and mobility industry. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter. Until next week, goodbye.